Hi, I'm Janet and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my mother's recipe for a sweet pastry crust. It's very light, very kind of cakey and short cakey really, so it makes a delicious crust for any type of sweet filling. She used to make apple pies all the time, and you know, the ones with the top on them, and they were just delicious. I'm going to be making a walnut pie today, which is lovely. I'll be doing another video with that on it, and I'll put the link here in the bottom of the description, in the description box. It's also really delicious for lemon meringue pie, and gosh, any type of sweet filling would be delicious. So come along into the kitchen and join me. The first thing that we need to do is set our oven to 180 degrees, get it preheated, and 180, and just make sure there's nothing in the oven, of course. Now the next thing is to look at the pan and get that prepared. I've got one of these old-fashioned flan pans. I quite like the ridges around the outside, but in order to get that to come out nicely when you've finished cooking it, you've got to grease it quite well. So I get a nice dollop of butter there and give it a good greasing all over. And don't forget to get right into the ridges, because that's where it tends to get stuck. Okay, I just like to use my hands and get all around there and get it all nicely greased and so it won't stick. I don't often use baking paper, especially these old-fashioned recipes. I mean, they didn't use them in those days, so that's what I tend to do, is just follow the old method. Okay, so now we're going to get on to making the pastry, and I've got my dish here, and we need 125 grams of butter. I've got this butter here. It's been sitting at room temperature for an hour, so it should be just nice and soft. And I'm going to measure out 125 grams of butter. Don't worry, what I'll do is I'll leave the put the ingredients in the description box, so you'll be able to follow. Yep, 125 exactly. So I'm just going to pop that in there. It's very nice and soft and smushy. So you can with my hands. And the next thing that we need to put in there is about a tablespoon, maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons of sugar. Look, it's just preference really. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I just think if you're doing a sweet pastry, it just makes a bit of a difference. I'm going to use 1, maybe 1.5, 1 to 2. It's just up to you as to what, you know, your taste and how you like it. So I'm just going to cream that together a little bit, get it a little bit mixed around. By all means do this with, you know, your paddle attachment in your mixer, but I don't know, it's just that this is such an old-fashioned recipe and we've always done it by hand at home, so I tend to just do it by hand. So I'm just mixing that around so that, as you can see, it's getting nice and smushed up, and the sugar is getting incorporated into the butter. And I'm just going to do that for a wee while, just not really so that it's creamed, but just so that it's all incorporated and gets a little bit softer. Maybe just for a couple of minutes or so. So that's looking quite good. It's all the sugar is incorporated, and it looks great. The next thing I'm going to do is add 1 egg. This is what makes it quite nice and short cake sort of style. So that one egg will go into the butter and the sugar, and it will be a little bit sort of, you know, difficult to stir around, but look, don't worry, it will work in the end. It will come together because it's just such a forgiving recipe. And gosh, that's just what I love about it. I love things that work. So we're not going to be too worried about how that goes in. It'll be not fully incorporated, but it'll be mixed around okay. Alright, so the next thing really is to get on with putting the flour in. I have plain flour here, which is, I think is okay, is good. But I'm sure you could use other types of flour as well, but I like to use plain flour. And we want 1 1/4 cups of flour. So I'm just going to pop that in there. I'm not even going to sift it. How easy is that? And then 1/4 cup. Double check my measurement. 1/4 cup. Maybe a little bit less. I don't know. It's a bit forgiving, and we will sort of be adjusting the consistency a little bit later when we bring it all together. I'm also going to be adding in a little bit of baking powder. Not much, just a tiny bit. It kind of makes it a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to put in, I don't know, 1/2 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to start with a large 1/4 teaspoon and pop that in. Okay, so the next part is to really just try and bring all of that together. I'm starting off with a wooden spoon, but very soon I'm going to use my hands because I think, well, you know, it's the old-fashioned method and it works perfectly. Okay, so that's just starting to incorporate, and it's quite moist, it's quite soft, quite a soft mixture, and you can see it's just starting to come together. So what I'm going to do, now that it's a little bit crumbly, I'm going to start feeling it, because I think that is often the best way with pastry, is to, oh, I can feel it's quite moist. So I really want to get that to the right consistency so that I can put it into the pan, into the flan dish. It's coming together nicely. It's looking really good. And we really want to make sure that we put as little amount as possible of the flour in. This is very buttery, so we want to maintain that butter kind of texture and that butter flavour. Especially for a sweet dessert, gosh, there's nothing better. And this will really be light as long as we don't put, you know, too much flour in it. Okay, we can make it heavier, but I think the beauty of this recipe is that it's very light and buttery. And that's just what I love. Now see how damp that is? It's quite moist, and we don't really want to make it any drier than that. You know, the least amount of flour that we can put in it, the better. So I'm just going to bring that together and just make sure that it's not too sticky. If it's too sticky and you can't handle it, add a little bit more flour. But I think, you know, that's not too bad. Just make sure I get all of those bits out. So I think that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'll make that on my hands again. Okay, so we've got our flan cake. fan dish here, or pastry dish, and we're going to make sure that we put that into there. Now, this old-fashioned recipe doesn't roll it out. It really just is a press kind of thing. So I'm going to just put some flour on my hands and take the pastry and just press it in. Now I want to press it really, really well. Using a bit of flour on my hands. And I want to press it, I want it round to the edges so that it comes up the side, because of course that's what's going to hold your lovely sweet filling. So see how easy that's going in? It's just great. We're just pressing this out, pressing it into the pastry dish and pressing it all around. I've gone around with my thumb right around the corners so that it's not too thick right at the edges. We don't really want that. We want it to be nice and thin all over. And I've made sure that it's spread out evenly. I'm just going to cut around the edges a little bit and take some of those bits and put them back into the sides and just make sure it's nicely finished off. Of course, we don't want to waste any of those bits, they're going to taste great. So just pressing them into different places where you think it's a bit thin and it needs a little bit of a filling up. I don't know, sometimes it looks kind of rustic when you don't finish off the edges, and that's fine too. Okay, so that's looking pretty good now, and I've been all around and checked that it's kind of the same all over, not too thin, not too thick, and it's just a perfect overall cover. And those little bits at the edge are not too thick, those little corners. I don't like biting into that huge piece of pastry that's stuck at the corner. You know, it should be the same width as the overall pie. Okay, so we're just going to pop that in the oven for 10 minutes. Now, this really is just a way to bake it a little bit so that you can put your filling in and then continue on with the baking. I'll be making a walnut pie with this, so that requires a bit of baking as well. It's got eggs and walnuts and syrup and things like that in it, all good things. So it needs to cook until the eggs are set. So I'm only going to put this in the oven for 10 minutes. If you wanted to use this with an already prepared filling, such as jam or, I don't know, lemon curd or something like that, bake it longer than 10 minutes. Bake it until it's fully cooked, and that would be about, 15-20 minutes, until it's all brown all over. This is going into the oven for 10 minutes. Oh, oven's hot. I'm going to put the timer on now, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at it when it's finished. Okay, so the timer's just gone off and it's had 10 minutes, so we're going to have a look at the pastry shell now and get it out of the oven. I'm going to leave my oven on because of course I'm making walnut pie after this. So look, the pastry shell is looking beautiful. It's just started to go a little bit brown around the edges. That's fine. I'm going to be cooking it for another 20 minutes with the filling in it, so it should be okay. The rest of it is not brown at all, it's just set basically, just sort of partially cooked. So that's probably the length of time that we want to cook it for, because we're going to add our filling. Hey look, thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen making a pie case. I'm now going to finish this video, and I'll be making another video on the filling part of it, so I'll put the link of course in the description box, and join me to look at that. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like my video. Hey, thanks a lot. Bye.